we were able to show that most of the, I don't know if it's most, but a large percentage of the customers didn't have any meters. They're just paying, a monthly fee that had nothing to do with however much they were using. We were able to show that the Public Service Commission, the Utility Commission in Helena, really didn't have as John said, didn't have the tools or the equipment or the resources or the energy to figure it out. And we had a former commissioner of the Public Service Commission testify. There were 47 witnesses who testified in the case. And the former commissioner, former legislator in the state of Montana said, I served on the commission. It's really not a very efficient way to manage this natural resource, this public needed resource which belongs to everybody. With respect to cost, as Tasha said, we were able to show that this particular instance of private ownership was really quite inefficient and quite uneconomical. The city of Missoula will pay no taxes, whereas the private utility had to collect enough in the monthly water bills to pay taxes. The private utility company's investors expected a profit, a return on their investment. And the Carlyle Group had investors from all over the world, literally. Probably not a single one in the state of Montana. And so they built into the rate base and the authorized PSC approved rate structure is a return on investment, which I think was 9-10% a year. So you tell me, if you can go to your local bank here in Monterey County and say, I got a savings account, can you give me 9 or 10% guaranteed a year? Unlikely. But you get that if you own a public utility. It's guaranteed. If you put, $10 into the system, you get back $11. So that's why, as John said, it's a cash cow in the sense that, if you do put money in, you're not at risk. You're getting it back plus, right? If you wipe out that profit, there's more money that the customers are paying in for revenue. The rates could theoretically lower, or you could keep the rates the same, and you're going to have a lot more money available instead of spreading it out and distributing it to investors, passive investors who aren't customers. You're going to be able to spend it on infrastructure improvements, repairs, and remediation, which is precisely what the plan is of my friends in Montana. And stewardship was really the theme of that care and care theme, meaning, this is a public necessity. Whoever's owning it, whether it's a private utility or a public governmental municipality, needs to be stewards for the current generation, the future generations, and make sure that care is taken to preserve the water, because it's precious now, as I think all of you know. It's going to be more scarce. It's going to be more precious. This is more important in the future than it has been in the past. We had an environmental, a professor at the University of Montana was part of the Nobel Prize winning team on climate change, who came in and testified for 30, 45 minutes about how important water will be in the future. We had an economist come in and testify as to the economics of water utility and provision of public services. We had a water economics professor come in and testify. And all of this kind of built into the court's evaluation of what the evidence was. One of the considerations in the state of Montana is, what's the public opinion? That matters. So we commissioned an outfit that typically does polling for presidential elections. And I guess we were in between presidential elections. He had a little time on his hands, so he did a poll of the citizens and residents of Missoula. And it came back, I remember when he called and said, you won't believe these results. It's like 70% of the population is in favor of public ownership. We don't see that kind of a margin. I mean, we're excited if it's 52-48. Here you've got 70% of the people saying that the city should own the water system. And put him on the stand, and the judge took into consideration what she considered to be reliable evidence of what the public opinion was in the community. And then on that third topic of competence to operate, part of the defense was, as John said, you can't afford it, we're going to make it too expensive, you can't borrow enough money, and you're not competent to operate it. And as John suggested, we put on evidence of the successful operation of a wastewater treatment system, which is, as I came to understand, a much more complicated undertaking than a water system, because you got to treat that stuff. I mean, that's, in Missoula, the water comes out of the ground. There's a, subsurface aquifer, which has, virtually 100% pure water. So here's just another fact. City of Missoula, cost of the operation of the water system is basically the pumps and the personnel. That's it. And there's no filtration. There's no need to filter the water because it's pure. There's no need to treat it with chemicals. There's no treatment really that's necessary. Somebody said you throw in a little chlorine and it's off the customer. That makes for a very inexpensive operation, okay? Very little in the way of overhead to operate that system. Most of the systems in Montana are surface water systems, water out of rivers. Needs to be filtered, needs to be treated, can't go to the households unless it is. Very expensive. Most expensive rates are at the top of the list of highest monthly rates for water systems. Missoula, Montana, with the lowest cost of operation. Why is that? Other systems which are surface, heavy emphasis on treatment, some of them half the monthly rate of Missoula. Why is that? Well, the answer is, as we discovered, the administrative services that they're paying to the parent corporation. And when John said it never turned a profit, the operating company, that's true. Imagine that. They're getting, 18 million, 20 million a year, and water bills are being paid, Dale? Never made a profit, not any given year. So I asked the head of the Park Water in a deposition taken in Downey, California. And by the way, each of these companies was paying a third of the cost of the parent, including this fellow's $600,000 a year salary. Missoula, Montana is paying a third of the electrical bill in Downey, California, a third of the property taxes in Downey, California. And what's happening is they don't turn a profit because every dollar that comes in the door through the monthly bills, that's excess of the costs of operation. It sort of magically becomes part of the administrative services fee that Missoula is paying to Downey, California for their executives to be available if we need them. $2 to $2.5 million a year on a revenue base of 18 to 20 million. On top of what the actual costs in Missoula are being paid to the executives and the home office, as they put it. So that's where the money went. And as the money went up as an administrative services fee, it's not taxed, right? It's a cost. But then once it gets to the Park Water level, lo and behold, Park Water's having a great year. Well, they don't have any operations. All they do is own 3 companies. But they're getting this administrative services fee to the point where over 18 or 24 months, they were able to dividend up to Carlisle $11 million. The sole source of revenue for each of the 3 companies is the monthly bills that the customers are paying. That's a long-winded explanation of why was Missoula's cost of water so much higher than most every other city in the state whose costs of operation were higher. Thank you.
Hello. I guess one of the things that I worked on a lot, my background is finance, and I'm a certified public accountant by training. So I'm comfortable in front of a crowd here talking to you by that training. That's what they teach you in CPA school. But I think one of the primary roles that I played was converting the financial statements from a corporate basis to a municipal basis, and working with our finance team. We had financial advisors, we had our bankers, we have worked with the rating agencies to make sure we could understand and afford the system, and that finance team was with us the entire time, even before the condemnation process, and the city was going to make an offer to Carlisle to acquire the system. I mean, we had those bankers and financial advisors with us that whole time and all the way through the condemnation. So what we did is we were able to identify all of the things that Harry and Natasha mentioned earlier about the administrative services fees, the board of trustees fees, all of the items that are in a municipal environment aren't going to be there. The income taxes and in Montana property taxes, and so converting that to we converted all those financial statements to municipal environment, and lo and behold, all through that, because of the revenues of that system, we can support essentially $100 million bond issue under the current rates, and we'll be able to operate to collect the same revenues, operate the system. We've hired all of the employees from Mountain Water. They're all going to be City of Missoula employees. We can make all our debt service payments, and we've already started our facilities planning, and we have a 5-year capital improvement plan. We're going to be able to fund that entire capital improvement plan under the current rates. And it's been vetted thoroughly by the courts, by our engineers, by our bankers, and even Standard & Poor's, the rating agency. Water is among the highest credit you can get in a municipal operation. It's absolutely necessary to do. Typically, cities have the ability to control their rates, and so even without owning the system and having operating history, we received an A rating out of the gate for this. So we were very lucky in that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about those employees that you hired back. Could you tell us if there was any problem for them to be taken into a municipal system rather than working for this private company?
So one of the challenges is that employees of Mountain Water were represented by legal counsel, and over the course of the years of private ownership, those folks were indoctrinated into the notion that working for the city was a bad thing, and B, was going to damage them financially. And we had maintained from day one that we would not only hire those employees because they know how to operate the system, they just haven't had the resources they need to maintain it properly and to improve it properly. So we made that commitment, and it has taken quite a while for those employees to believe that this was actually going to happen, because they had been hearing all along from members of their management team that the city couldn't afford it, that the courts would never approve it, that we could never get this done. So when it became a clear reality that the city was going to acquire the system, we began negotiations in earnest. We made offers to all those employees. We hired an actuary to help understand the difference between their private retirement and public retirement, and then bridge whatever gap might exist. So those employees of the 37 employees at Mountain Water, 35 are under contract and 2 have offers in front of them, and we fully expect those folks to come to work for us on day one, and we're pleased and proud to have them.
I have 2 questions. What is the total water production each year, or the total water sales, which I guess is half as much? And the other question is, who did the valuation of the system for you? What individuals? If it was a firm, was it HDR? Where they're located, and how long did that take?
So I'll answer the second question first, because I don't know the answer to the first question. So originally we had hired, so the city of Missoula has a financial advisor, Springstead, out of Minneapolis. Dave McGilvery is our chief contact there. We had Springstead, we had a mergers and acquisitions attorney named Roy Tucker from Perkins Coie out of the Portland office, and we had an investment banker, Roger Wood from Moelis and Company in New York City. Those folks converged in Missoula, and we began the process of understanding the public financials, what we knew about the company based on public documents, and creating, based on a variety of valuation methods, a range. And that range on the low end was something on the order of, I think it was 40 million, give or take, and the upper range for us was something on the order of 100, 110, something like that, again, based on all of these varying factors. So we had that to begin with, and that's how we established that original offer that we proffered to Carlisle. As condemnation got underway in earnest, we contracted with HDR, which did a pile of due diligence for us. And also through the discovery process, we got more information. And so we were able to continue to refine those numbers and get a much more complete and accurate picture of the way the system worked and how the money worked. With regard to how much the volume, I don't know that.
Volume, I'm thinking it was leaking 4 billion gallons a year. So that tells me they were pumping out 8 billion. 4 leaked, 4 got to the customers. If that answers that question. And on the valuation, I think that some of these, well, Craig Close was engaged to do a review of the integrity of the system and the repairs that were necessary and what was wrong with the operation as Carlisle operated it. We had 2 valuation experts, David Hayward from Southern California and Joe Venso, who is an economics professor who does business valuations or appraisals, teaches at the University of Montana, used to teach at USC in Los Angeles. Hayward did a much more utility-focused valuation. Venso did what you might consider to be a more standard ongoing business valuation. And they use typical, acceptable appraisal methods. The length of time that they each took to do that study, I think probably Venso and Hayward probably had 4 months, start to finish. And if they have the information, if you can get them the financial information, the depreciation schedules, if you can get them the book value of the equipment when purchased, they can move pretty quickly. Our problem was not their ability to move quickly. Our problem was getting the information out of Carlisle and Mountain Water and Park Water into the hands of the experts. So it was a pretty short fuse. This thing was filed on April 6th of 2014. We went to trial in March, 11 months later, 2015. So we had discovery basically from May of 2014 until October of 2014. 5 months, start to finish. Then we had some motion practice depositions of the experts and other witnesses from November through, I'd guess, January. And then we gave opening statements probably March 18th or so. Pretty quick. Judge Townsend took 3 months, March, April, April, May, June. She issued her opinion on June 15th, 2015. The valuation trial went forward in November of 2015. No additional discovery. The Supreme Court argument occurred in April of 2016, and I believe the decision of the Supreme Court came out in August of 2016. So it was pretty, is that right? So pretty rapid, pretty fast. In the world of litigation, where I happen to live, that's darn fast.
You did not have to go to the voters prior to doing this. You decided this within your city council.
We did, yeah. So through ordinance, the city council authorized me to pursue acquisition of the water company. We did have a number of folks say, if this is so important, why don't we vote on it? Why don't we have a referendum? My answer to that was that during the course of this, I ran for my 3rd term in 2013, and half of the 12-member city council ran for office as well. Each of those folks had a position on water acquisition. Mine was very clear, and I was reelected. I had 3 folks running against me. I was reelected, and each of the council members who were elected all supported public acquisition. So my notion was that was a form of referendum.